The Albuquerque Police Department is currently undergoing reforms that are a requirement in the agreement between the city and the U.S. Department of Justice. Now, many of the reforms will be related to training and policies on the use of force by APD officers. And one former officer says a return to a community policing model might also help improve relations between APD and community members. Our correspondent Stan Wilson sat down recently with a retired APD officer who is also a current state lawmaker.
I'm joined by Representative Patricia Ruiloba. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
When you joined the Albuquerque Police Department over 20 years ago, did you believe in a community-based policing model?
I think at that time I really didn't understand what it was, but I knew that when I got into the police department that I was going to be serving people, which is kind of the baseline and the foundation for the community program.
And so what did that become in terms of what you learned and how you were trained to interact with the community?
So the model really provided information in many facets. One, it was of course training we received in the police academy, the awareness of what the badge really represents and that it is bigger than just us. It also kind of bled over into our on-the-job training with our instructors who were kind of guiding us on how to interact and deal with situations in a more kind of like relationship kind of way.
And so how did you balance the role of community-based policing with building respect and mutual understanding with the dangerous situations that you encountered dealing, of course, being in the gang unit and narcotics unit and detectives?
I think what was really helpful in getting this awareness and information about what community policing is when I'd show up in these situations, I really didn't have a predetermined outcome. It provided me the opportunity to interact with people, receive the information, and then try to find resolutions. And some of the most dangerous ones in some of the capacities that I dealt with, many of them kind of were because of my own doing within the investigation. So it involved more of an alertness, and community policing wasn't really involved in those situations.
Well, did you encounter any violent in situations?
Yes, I have. In the capacity that I worked as a narcotics detective, it's a very dangerous career to choose because you're dealing with drugs and the violence that comes with that. But what I really learned about that experience is that I started looking at why and what got this person in that situation, but also why is it happening in those communities?
Were you ever assaulted?
Yes.
What happened to you?
I've been assaulted several times. During the end of my career, I was contacting an individual who was a gang member, and they had a warrant for their arrest, and it was a juvenile. And during the contact and affecting the arrest, I fell to the ground, I hit my head, and I was knocked unconscious and ultimately lost my sense of smell.
Did you feel any sense of revenge, or did it change your attitude about how you were going to approach potential for violent suspects in the future?
I think that I really didn't have any feelings of revenge. We understand in this capacity that we're going to get hurt sometimes, and we're going to be put in dangerous situations. But what I really learned from it is kind of what is directed to what I'm doing now in my current capacity is that what's causing this individual to be in that situation. So the attention and the thinking that I was going through when I was having these incidents is, why are these people in this situation?
Why do you suppose the culture in the police department changed over your 20 years, given that the U.S. Justice Department came down and cited some very disturbing patterns of allegations of excessive force? I'll give you one example in their report. An elderly man who was assaulted, shot with a stun gun at close range, just basically for waving his cane. How did you react to that when you read these reports?
I was kind of concerned, and I really can't explain why the officer did that. But when I started looking at some of the trends that were occurring, I started kind of looking at where our police department's at. You know, I started looking at how officers are being trained. Of course, looking at manning levels, because one of the things that I've seen is if you have a decline in your force, you're going to see officers moving into situations potentially when they should have cover, or if they need additional resources, they're kind of taking that stuff upon themselves. So I think manning levels are very important, but also the training. I think that if police departments aren't connected to their community, and not in a way where it's going to be more involved in a punitive response, but more of building relationships to understand what's going on, if that's not happening, we're going to see stuff like that.
So what can you identify as a turning point? Was there a period in which you saw a breakdown in that type of policy?
I think when there was a change in leadership within police departments that were based on that theory, and then of course 9/11 really kind of shocked the whole nation, and in situations like that, the immediate response and the support for those situations are law enforcement. So we saw law enforcement getting specialized training, additional resources to get equipment that they need to potentially respond if we have any other kind of situations like that.
And so did you see it move into more of a paramilitary style rather than incorporating, integrating the original mission of community-based policing, where you had relationships with faith leaders, the mental health community, gang intervention specialists, and so forth?
I think that there was some units created with that attitude, and these were units that traditionally responded to situations that involved immediate threats for life. And what I've seen is that these specialized units were now responding to other cases or other calls that maybe first-line officers could resolve, or additional resources. So I saw a shift in response for our specialized tactical teams kind of going out in situations that maybe field services could have responded to. And the question that I had is why is that occurring? During my time with Albuquerque Police Department, it was a wonderful time. I mean, I enjoyed not only the relationships I built with the officers, but within the community. I was really impressed with La Mesa and Trumbull Park neighborhood associations, because the issues that they were having in that community really forced them to come together as a community and solve the issues within the community. And they use the police department and the fire department and other city agencies as resources. So the behavior occurring really empowered those people to come together and use the options to resolve it. And that's the basis for community policing.
And so what are you hearing today from the rank and file officers about the desire to return to a true community-based policing model that fits the guidelines under the Justice Department agreement and what you experienced?
Many of the officers that are out there now got in for the same reason I did. We want to serve, we want to protect our community, we want to protect our families, and we really want to make Albuquerque a safe place. But they're facing challenges because of manpower levels and maybe that lack or that ability to create pathways to communicate with their constituents and the people they represent is challenging. So if an officer is inundated with calls for service, or there's not enough officers during that shift to handle those calls, there's no way these officers can make those connections. The officers want to connect, they just don't have the time.
So you have a stake in transforming the police department and returning to what you believe it really represents and should best represent. As a lawmaker, what can you do on your end?
Well, one of the things that I want to do is make sure that our police departments have the fiscal resources to get back and have that opportunity to build time. One of the most important things about community-based policing is you need time. You need time for the officers to not only answer their calls, but interact with the community. We need time for our commanders and leaders to be kind of the forefront in being that go-to person when communities are having issues. First line responders, our officers, are there to take calls and involve and support immediate resolutions. But we're talking about systematic problems, drug use, crimes in the areas. Those need to be directed to the commanders because they have the resources and they should be the ones contacting communities.
And so how do you get there?
I think, and what I'm trying to do is provide money. And the money is going to go to the academies so we can start promoting, of course, not only recruitment opportunities, but also make sure that our officers have the training and the equipment that they need. Because police departments change with the times, we have to make sure that our police departments are able to do that as well. I believe that the police departments in Albuquerque have always been community-based. I like the idea of them coming together and creating a plan. But when the change of not only 9/11, but also chief positions, if those individuals didn't understand the importance of that or were involved in it at the time, it's very challenging to get that back.
Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time. Hope you come back again.
Thank you.